Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Susan Gay, and my Zoom engineer for this session is Idalmi de Leon. And we welcome you to this session titled The Healing Father. Before we begin and turn it over to the presenter for this session, we just want to remind you of a few housekeeping things. Mute yourself, please, so that we don't have feedback and interference. And we also want to remind you to rate the session at the end. You can find that on the Whova app under the link for this session. You should see a little rectangle that says rate the session. And if you would give us your feedback, that would be awesome. It will help us to improve and plan for future conferences and also help our presenter. And you will be entered into a drawing for an opportunity to win a $25 gift card. So as I said, our session for this afternoon is titled The Healing Father. Mr. Mike Duncan is our honored presenter. And I just want to share a little bit about Mike. Mike Duncan is an enrolled member of the Round Valley Indian tribes. His tribal heritage is Madu, Wailaki, Wintun, and Western Band Shoshone. Hopefully I said those correctly, and no disrespect if I didn't say them correctly. In 2012, Mike Duncan founded Native Dads Network and is currently the CEO. Native Dads Network became a 501c3 nonprofit in 2014. Mike is also a certified CADC2 substance abuse counselor. In his time, Mike has facilitated the Fatherhood, Motherhood is Sacred curriculum with great success and has helped create a network of fatherhood, motherhood groups in Northern California. He has worked in urban and rural tribal communities, conducting workshops discussing topics such as fatherhood, motherhood is sacred, historical intergenerational trauma, cultural competency, substance abuse prevention, suicide and healthy relationships. And he has used these topics and personal stories to help participants look at barriers to encourage traditional teachings as solutions. This session is one of 3 on the men's health track, which is being sponsored by the Making Connections grant that focuses on male mental health and well-being and is funded by Movember Foundation. Thank you for attending, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike Duncan. Mike, welcome and thank you.
Good afternoon. Yes, I'm happy to be here. That's a great introduction. You almost had is Maidu, and so this is close. And we knew that might be a miss here and there, but you did really good as far as pronouncing my tribes up here in California. So good afternoon again. My name is Mike Duncan. I'm Executive Director of Native Dads Network here in California. I'm really happy and proud to be presenting today. There's so much to speak about, in this short amount of time. And one of the things that I was really on this, this high, this wellness high, this kick that we, obviously our conference just ended, the Healing Together conference. But also, again, the work that we're doing here, I wanted to share a little bit about that, and then also have time to share our philosophy of how we work with our men in our communities and to prepare them to be better fathers and to help them be better husbands, better sons, and so forth. My journey when we first started doing this work was really it just really comes from my own struggles. I was born in Sacramento, and in Sacramento, I struggled a lot as a young kid, being kind of displaced as being the only Native kid in the school type of thing. And, it was really hard growing up, not understanding what was wrong with me and why I didn't fit into like the rest of my kids in class. And it's something that, when we look at, kind of the teachings of the healing the inner child, and using, understanding that part of that component of this whole process is like our experiences kind of create, can create a barriers or trauma, it create barriers going forward in life. I had a lot of struggles growing up. And, for me, I struggled with addiction at a very early age. And, and it just really took me in some other places as far as, making bad decisions, ending up in, juvenile hall and some other juvenile, I guess, detention centers and things of that nature. But you know what? It was one of those things that when you start to like replay everything, and you start to really understand historical intergenerational trauma, and you kind of live it out, and you start to understand it in a sense of like you try to put it into your life. Said, huh, I get it now. Like, you know, um, my father. One of the things, it's this the title of this is the Healing Father. And so when I look at the generation, the generational men in my family, like my father and his father, and type of things. I my dad was an alcoholic. His dad was an alcoholic. I became an alcoholic, right? And when I looked at, again, some of the things that like my dad's dad, my grandfather wasn't really around for him, based on his behavior and other things or what he chose in life. And my dad having zero skills of teaching, really being this like, well, I'm his second born, but the one that he, him and my mom are still together trying to raise, it was something that was really, it was difficult for him, coming out of his own, like I said, alcoholism and trying to heal himself. And then having a son that wanted his attention, wanted him to be taught, to have that kind of bond. I really wanted that bond with my dad, and him just not having the skills to work with me like that. The way that and I only say that now because I understand that today, and how I have a relationship with my boys in my life. It's really different. And so that's what my presentation is going to be about today, is like that's kind of understanding the, you know just through my experience of how, fatherhood has impacted my life, and then becoming well, and then, now be able to, not only live by example of fatherhood or a father, learning skills, being able to have classes and people teach people how to be a good father. And that's the only way I know how to teach. Like I said, I've been doing this work for a while. So I'm doing it since 2000. Well, I've been doing the fatherhood curriculum for since 2009. And I became like, if you know Al Pulley, I became Al Pulley's like, man, he was my mentor. Like he became like a person that I looked up to. And then I went to that book, I don't know how many times, and read it. And matter of fact, I got class tonight too, but I just read it over and over again. And I became like one of those individuals that like started living the program. Something that one of my first teachers taught me, at the beginning, he said, you know what, Mike, this stuff is so much easier to teach when you live what you teach. And that really resonated with me. And it still resonates with me, as like far as me understanding that, you know, uh, there's some things that, if I'm gonna talk it, something that I better walk it as well. You know what I mean? And that just goes along with just my fatherhood or even my classes and such. So, sorry about that. That was my son. Speaking of kids. Um, and so this journey, like I said, I'll start here with this journey. There was a lot of failed situations. Like I said, I've always craved the attention of my father. Um, and like I said, he just didn't have the skills. Like he was very stoic man, as a native man. He had his going through his own stuff of, especially when he came back into my mother's life or our lives at that time. He was really struggling with his own addiction, and coming out of it and trying to make sense of everything coming off that that euphoria thinking or belief system. And maybe not, maybe even regretting coming back, maybe like it's I know as an alcoholic, I like drinking. It became part of my life. But when I started having struggles when I was a teenager, and I really need someone to talk to, like he was really unemotionally, like emotionally unavailable to me. So I didn't understand like the simple things of being taught, like how how to deal with my emotions, or how to navigate through relationships, like how to talk to a girl, or how to deal with heartbreak, or how to um, deal with being bullied, or how to deal with like life just in general. Like this didn't really give me any kind of skills of that nature. And so, like a lot of young boys, if you work in the field and you work with native boys, I became very angry, because I didn't understand a lot of emotions that I was going through. And so, and then, like I said, on top of that, being bullied at a young age, um, and thought I found the solution in alcohol, I started self-medicating a lot. And I became very distant to my family. I kind of separated myself from my family at a very young age. About 14 years, I was like running away a lot. And I don't know if it's called running away, if your parents kind of let you do it. So, but I would not come home for days or sometimes a week at a time. And, it'd be like, come home, it'd be like, hey, dinner's on the table. And like, okay, where you been? I don't know, my friends and that kind of thing. So there was really not a lot of guardianship in the sense of like, I don't know if they were worried about me. I just didn't feel like I was wanted at that young age, even though my parents do love me. I mean, it's not like I'm saying that, but it was just different, a different time. And, growing up that way, and you understand, and you're feeling that way, and what I know, like a lot of us know now as adults now, all the behavior and all the thinking, if it's not, you know, dealt with at a young age, we become adults. And all that belief, whatever I picked up, running around and just kind of, supervising myself in a sense, I became an adult and with the same belief systems. I was very immature in my 20s. And in those 20s, I made some bad, just a lot of bad decisions. I didn't, of being like, I was just talking to somebody right now about like I've got a DUI. I started going violating. I started going back in and out of jail, and I can never really hold down a job. What I mean, like I started, hanging around people that did negative things, and like I just kind of joined along with them. You know what I mean, and kind of just because I was always kind of searching for something, this hole that was inside me. In my 20s, if I was about 26, I had my son. I have 5 children, so like I said, I come from that kind of part of experience. And I couldn't, and I always, I don't know how people say it. I'll just say it the way I think. I'm kind of that kind of guy. Like my she's my ex-wife now, but she knew exactly who I was. That's at the time. I mean, I wasn't like a model citizen, I could say. And we fell in love, and we had a child. And when she wanted me to change, for my son, I couldn't. I just didn't know how. And I struggled with that. I fell into some deep depressions, drank more, did some more dumb things, drank more, like just that kind of rotation of behavior over and over again. End up in jail, end up, on the streets, end up, doing stupid things. I kind of like that whole cycle of insanity, right? And got to this place of like, in jail, and like, kind of being happy to be there just based on, hey, I'm safe, got a roof over my head, I don't gotta pay no bills, I could hide from like whatever life and in general. And then, well, how can, and maybe not even, in a way kind of ashamed of who I became, and put a barrier, like, so that way, like my son, I'm not, and kind of really said, my son is better without me, that kind of thinking. And so it was interesting because when I start to do the work today, how similar, and how a lot of our men, struggle with this, is they think that a lot, like my kids don't need me, right? Their mother's taking care of them. They're fine without me. And that whole thinking is, again, that's the lie that everyone has believed. All our children need that male role model, a healthy male role model, right? We know that. And so in through that time, after I had my first kid, I had a daughter, and about a year and a half later from another woman. And I thought that was, I don't know, I thought I was, falling in love again, type of thing, and just didn't work out. And then like, about 10 years went by, and had 3 more kids. from another woman, and I really tried to change that last time, and it just didn't. It really just didn't happen, because again, me and her were just in a different lifestyle, and we know. And like I said, I've been working in the field long enough and working with enough families. We start to believe, we start as a person like that in that where I was at that time. I really believe that like this is just what it is. This is just what it's going to be as far as the way my lifestyle that I was living, um, her kind of dealing or accepting me as the way I was, not trying to improve myself, just always kind of laying on the couch waiting for like a job or laying on the couch waiting for life to change, complaining, drinking more, and that kind of thing, just like over and over and over again. And finally, when I went back to violated that last time, she just was like, that's enough for that, and she kind of went on her own. And and so we getting pushed into the system, and then I'll get to the point of all this. And so getting pushed into the system again, and her being who she was, their mother, the kids went to CPS, and this is how I changed. This is where I was kind of forced at that time to begin to recovery and kind of understand the principles of all this stuff. And really focusing on the work that we're doing today, the work that's very important to me, and understanding certain things, how they work with inside our communities. Because you know um when I first walked into the rooms of recovery, I was like, I was very I looked for somebody that, like, I was looking for somebody that looked like me, that talked like me, that kind of dressed like me. Like, I needed somebody that to identify with, and there wasn't really anybody to identify with. And because being a native man, especially, and I was, again, I was at that point in my using like a career, I guess you would call it, I wasn't able to focus on too many things. And this is why I know, like, a lot of this work has to do with like the creator, and how creators plan. We understand like how creator just does things. He just does things for our people, whether we know it or not. Because I was very miserable, but I just I couldn't, um, I just couldn't quit on my children. I really wanted to be a dad, and I really wanted him to, become someone they could love, and get him back in my life, and those type of things. And so I just did what I needed to do. And in that course, I've in these last years, I've really mended a lot of relationship, a lot of, I'm still working on relationships with my older kids, and having, because, the damage I've done as far as using, and not being present, and not being emotionally connected. Like, all the things that my father did to me, I did it to my older children. And then my younger kids got the new me, like the person in recovery, the person that never saw a drink, the person that doesn't cuss, that doesn't hang out on the streets, doesn't go to bars, like nightclubs, like all they get two different worlds, right? And and I fell into that world. So I decided to become a substance abuse counselor because I figured that makes sense. And at that present time, I was going to save the world with 12 steps. And that's the way it was, because 12 steps helped me. And I fell into this other program called, Fatherhood is Sacred. And I really bought into that. Fatherhood is Sacred. I really bought into again, the principles that were laid out. And I really thought that this is what could help me. This really could save me. And so with this program, we'll fast forward to Native Dads Network, because I know I don't have a lot of time, but we get to this. It came with this vision. It's called Native Dads Network, and it was going to be kind of a very grassroots, organic kind of program where we worked with our men, and we, as a group, we're going to do things like more interactive to uplift our spirits. So one of the things that we did at the beginning, and well, we still do it a lot. We started working as we started having groups, we started volunteering in the community. And that became important to me because I remember when I first started my recovery and I started working, we had a group called Warrior Down by White Bison. We had a group here in Sacramento, and in that group, they would take us out, and we would be security. And I remember us first doing that, security, and I was like, shoot, do they know who I am? Like, I can't be security. And but it was like amazing. Like I felt the honor of being like I had a purpose. Like I felt the honor of helping elders, help set up, help take down, help put things away. Like people were trusting me, and that was something I didn't feel for a long time, even within inside myself. And so it really helped me. I went into this other, so I started doing that within my own group. I said, we're gonna do a lot of volunteer work. So we went to the local, like what we call here Big Times. It's where we do a kind of our social dances in California, in Northern California. And we went to some of the powwows, and we have booth, and we help volunteer there. We go to other like elders dinners and other things that were very important. So we started becoming very visible to the community, that these are men is um, on the path of healing. And I was just doing it like I said, it was like a job, and it was something that I had passion about. But I'm gonna tell you something that was really powerful to me. I was doing a group. We were kind of homeless for a little bit too, meaning like a lot of our programming was at the park, and because again, I didn't have like an office or anything, but one of the tribes here, Buena Vista Rancheria, Rhonda Morningstar Pope, she asked me, like, so what are you guys doing? Where you guys have your office at? And I'm like, I don't have an office. I mean, she's like, you can do it at the tribe. And so we went to the tribe, and one of our groups there, and so we started group started getting large. So we were started off really small group, and we started having like 32 people in our group. And in that group, it was we started getting visitors, and so it was the domestic violence advocates that here. They're called Kenny Miwu. They're domestic violence advocates here in California that've been around for a long time. They have a lot of safe houses here. Their director and some of their staff came to our group, and they sat with us, and they heard us talking about the things we were talking about healing, about forgiveness, about love, about self-worth, self-forgiveness, and these principles, just going right deep into the healing part for our men. And I remember clear as day, one of the ladies stood up with her hand up in the air, and so I thought she wanted to say something, but she was totally in tears. And she's like, Mike, I just want to share that. And she was like, this is our prayers. And she said that um, she goes, I never thought I'd see the day that men would want to heal. And it was like one of those moments. It's like my eyes just opened up so big, and I was like, holy smokes, this is the ripple effect of the wellness or the work that we're doing. Yes, I'm working with the father, but it also impacts the women. It also impacts the children, the grandparents, the future generations. There's a ripple effect about the work that we do. There's power in the things that we're doing. And I became a believer in the things that we're talking about, this whole thing about fatherhood or the healing man, because our communities, this is the truth. And it's nothing, because we know in our communities, or most of our communities are matriarchal societies, meaning like a lot of our, and even now, like prior, there were communities that were just the women been holding it down for a long time. They've been taking care of those boys and the wounded, that type of thing. And we need to take our place next to our women and stand with them and to do this work. And it becomes very important because of the balance that needs to come to the room, that comes to the circles. There needs to be balance in our communities. There needs to be the men, and there needs to be the men medicine, and there's the women medicine. We need both. And I started to understand that more at that moment, because I was like, man, I did not think about that. That the women have been praying for us men to get well for a long, long time. And so even now, as all this time has gone by, I've been doing this since 2009, it's 2012, so we're talking about 13 years. That this we have a long way to go still. We have a long way to go when we have and so there's our support for our men's is like weekly groups, but we're also like, man, like a lot of these are community members, and I know that my phone stays on. It just, you never know what crisis can maybe pop up in our community that needs attention. I know I get growled out once in a while for that, even for my own kids, like, put your phone down. You can't leave everybody, but this is how much I know how this work is so important to our people, and how, um, you know, going forward in the future generations, our young ones need to see men healthy. They need to see our men well. We need to change perspective on the men healing sometimes in places, because we need to get away from the belief that we don't need men, or we could do this without men. You know, those are just those are not true beliefs. You know what I mean? And I know where that came from, and I understand why it was said. But the truth, we do need our men. We need strong, healthy Native men, and just men in general. And so this program, or the groups that we do, are, man, they really focus on that, on the responsibility of fatherhood, the responsibility of us as Indian men to our ancestors and our future generations. And we use culture and 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 just healing modalities to help them get to this good place, whether it's the NEPI, or it's teaching songs, or it's, again, about healing ceremonies of just forgiving, going to the water, praying, teaching our men that the important place of being emotionally connected to their children, their women, and their lives. And it's beautiful work, and we've been making such great progress. I have so many men to brag about. I probably could do that for about an hour, but no, this is a beginning of so many beautiful things. And it's like now, it's catching fire, as far as, Al Pooley. Like I said, if follow Al Pooley's work, he's been doing this for a long time. I'm a product of that. We were counting the generations of, like, okay, I helped this person and this person helped this person. So, like, we have generation of like, in our own little program, of like 3 generations of men, that one person helped another person, like that mentoring part. Because this becomes a way of life, a way of belief, and so um I don't know where I'm at in time. I feel like I'm rushing a little bit, but
Yes, you have 3 minutes left.
okay, awesome. So my email, just I'll end with this. My email is in the chat. So if there's ever and I know I was I know I had to cut it a little bit short this time. I know I had supposed to be for Q&A after, but I have another presentation right after this. And so I thank you, Susan, for being so patient with me. But I told her on right before this, I said, I owe you one. So if you ever call me and say, Mike, I need you, I won't even blink an eye. I'm there for you, Susan, but for giving me a break on this, because I double booked. But no, my information's in the chat. You can give me a call. And if you're looking to start a program, or if you're looking for, anything, I'm here to support, you know what I mean? And I think one of the things that I understand, that each community, there's a lot of work to do with their men. And I'm open to sharing some of our, programming techniques or philosophies, and even group style that we do things, even for some of our programming outside of our groups, like, our trips to do volunteer work and things of that nature. So I'm definitely open to share that. And I appreciate the time. I felt like I rushed at the end, but I
Yeah.
want to make sure I ended on time.
Thank you, Mike. The chat is blowing up, and I just want you to share with you before you leave some of the comments in our chat. Thank you so much for sharing your story. There's a blessing for those who overcome their circumstances. You are an encouragement. Another participant says, this is so powerful, brother. We need you. Yes, we've been waiting and we've been praying. This is an answer to prayer. And someone else said, I love your words. Someone else says, I'm very moved by your story and your program. So thank you, Mike, for sharing. We've posted your email address. If you have questions or comments from Mike, as he said, feel free to reach out to him. I attended his Healing Together conference 2 weeks ago in California, and it was a tremendous blessing. And it was so encouraging to see the work that that Native Dads is doing. So, Mike, thank you again for your time, and thank you, participants, for attending. Again, we want to remind you to rate this session and have an opportunity to win a $25 gift card. We apologize that there isn't enough time for questions because of what Mike said, but we are still happy to have had him for 30 minutes, even if it meant that we didn't get questions at the end. So thank you very much. And everyone, Mike, you're free to jump off, but I just want to let participants know that this recording will be available to you. We will let you know when it will be available. You don't have to pay. It is part of your registration fee. And SPTHB will let you know when the recording is available, and you'll have access to it for at least up to a year. So thank you very much again, everyone. And if you missed the email address, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Susan Gay, and I am the program manager for Making Connections grant that focuses on male health and well-being, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with Mike Duncan. So take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. And the next session in this room is Culture is Laughter, and that will begin in approximately 28 minutes. So we'll see you then.